On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, Swiss lawmakers take steps towards Bitcoin regulation, and I go off on a rant. TunnelBear is the simple VPN app that makes it easy to browse the web privately and enjoy a more open and secure internet experience. Try TunnelBear for free by checking out the link in the video description below. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I am your host, Chris Coney. So let's get into it. A quick note before we begin today, this is going to be a reasonably short episode of the Cryptoverse because I have an interview lined up with this guy, Jeremy Kauffman, who is the CEO and the founder of LBRY. Never mind what that is, you'll find out in the interview. Just letting you know that I've got my work cut out for me today, so gonna have to shorten the episode a bit. So let's get back to the article. So today we turn to CoinDesk, coindesk.com, for this article written by Stan Higgins, and it's entitled Swiss Lawmakers Take Steps Towards Bitcoin Regulation. I'm not going to go through much of the article itself because it's just going to stimulate the rant that I ended up going on in my head when I read it. So it says, days after Swiss rail operator SBB made international headlines for their decision to sell bitcoins through their network of ticket kiosks, the country's Federal Department of Finance outlined its plans to regulate fintech with an eye to introduce legislation sometime next year. So I don't think I actually covered this, but Swiss Rail, one of the Swiss rail operators, they've got thousands of Swiss rail ticket machines all around the country, and by the sounds of it, they're just going to update the software on these ticket machines to allow people to, say, put their credit or debit card in the machine, and instead of buying rail tickets, they'll be able to buy Bitcoin, right? And then I guess you'll use your phone and your app using QR codes to have the machine send you the Bitcoin that you've just bought, which is brilliant because it all of a sudden creates an instantaneous kind of network infrastructure of Bitcoin ATMs. So that's good news, right? That's the example of a private company just seeing a gap in the market, a need in the market, seeing a service they can provide to the public and just doing it, right? And the reason they're able to do that is because there's nothing stopping them, right? And that's the problem with regulation. So let's get on to this. You know me, I'm always looking for the underlying principle in all of this stuff, right? Now, the reason I do that is because once we've established the fundamental principle that we're working with, we can then go back up and see all the options that we have in order to solve the problem. But without identifying the fundamental principle, we risk continuing down the same path that we're already on, using certain assumptions which may be completely false. So unless we question those assumptions by going to the fundamental principle level, we may be going down a completely wrong path, completely ineffectual path. So for example, prior to Bitcoin, the whole financial system was built around the problem of what's known as counterparty risk, which in other words, can you trust the guy on the other end of the transaction, right? I'm the first party, they're the counterparty, and they pose a risk in the transaction that if I send them the money, they won't send me the goods, or they're not who they say they are, etc., etc., etc. You can put that all in a bucket called counterparty risk. Is the other guy trustworthy? And in the legacy financial system, there are layers and layers and layers and layers of checks, balances, technology systems to answer that very simple question, because it's the only way to do it, right? And it's a fundamental flaw with the model and the principles that the system is built on. Necessary, right? It's just the way that evolution works. When a system is first invented, it solves a big problem. But a system has a usefulness, it has a range of usefulness. So it's most useful when it first comes in, and then as society evolves, eventually that system reaches its limit and has to be replaced. So there will come a time in the future, God knows when that will be, but what we see now is, fantastic cryptocurrencies and blockchains and so on, that's at the beginning of this new innovation, right? There will come a time, I don't know, maybe in a few hundred years, I don't know, when we will see blockchain technology and this fintech stuff we're doing now kind of like we see the legacy banking system. People have the same sort of animosity towards it. They go, oh, it doesn't work for us. And then this new innovation will come along, and people will see it like we see Bitcoin now. Oh my God, this is amazing. This is the future. We need to replace it, etc., etc., right? So what I'm talking about there is there's a range of usefulness. A system becomes useful, and then it becomes useless once it's lived out its purpose. So there are no infinitely perfect solutions, right? That's how evolution works. One system is created, it reaches its limits, it's replaced by another system, and so on and so on and so on. So the existing banking system has got us to where we are now. And without it, we wouldn't have been able to identify the problems that Bitcoin, blockchains, and cryptocurrencies solve. So it's done us a favor. It's definitely served a purpose. And through that very experience, we've identified, the shortcomings of that system and then built a new one. And like I said, then we'll identify the shortcomings with blockchain-based money, and then we'll replace it with another technology. So this problem of counterparty risk, where can you trust the guy on the other end of the transaction? This is especially a problem when you don't even know who they are. Say if they're across the other side of the web, on the other side of the world. Now, Bitcoin being a digital cash system, it creates a trustless network. It's not that you can trust what happens on the Bitcoin network, it's that you don't need to consider trust at all. What's the purpose of regulation? That's the question. So if we look up in the dictionary the word regulate to see what it means, it says regulate is a verb, and it says to control or direct by a rule, principle, method, etc. There we go again. It's based on the desire to control people. It's centralization of power. So let me switch back to the article here. So what's the positive intention behind regulation? It's to protect people from fraud, right? Do you agree with that? So in the same way that moving to a trustless system eliminates the need to trust anybody, why don't we also move to a system where it's nearly impossible to be defrauded? That would make sense, right? Because it cripples the foundation upon which the problem is based. Oh, that's right. We're building those systems right now. They're called smart contracts. And that's a situation where two individuals create, if you will, a mini set of regulations based on their mutual agreement. Not only that, they customize the regulation, or in this case, the terms of the contract, to their specific situation. And this is why government regulation has got to go. It's an impossible task to complete. It stifles creativity by limiting what people can do, and it directly imposes on the free will of the people. So let me just read you this last bit that I've highlighted here. It says, during a press conference, Swiss Finance Minister Uli Maurer argued that the proposed fintech legislation would help draw in more companies, though the country's accommodative stance has already led to some blockchain startups to make their home in Switzerland. What that makes me think is think of, when kids go to a playground, they even say, so-and-so is the playground for programmers or whatever. Well, a playground inherently, it kind of has no rules. Play is just that. It's the exploration and complete freedom. Now, if you put kids in a scenario and you gave them this laundry list of rules of what they can and cannot do, immediately you just sap all of the joy out of the exercise, and the kids are not going to be able to explore or learn anything. Now, why is it that Google are famous for their headquarters? They've created a very unstructured way of working where you can take breaks whenever you want and all that sort of stuff. It's very self-directed. That's the key. And the more rules we impose on anything, like you have to turn up at 9 o'clock and you can't leave until 5 o'clock and you have to have your lunch at 1 p.m. and all this sort of stuff, the more rules like that you put on people, the more it collapses creativity and the less chance we've got of coming up with genuinely innovative solutions to all of humanity's problems. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. Or even consider supporting me directly by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and sending me a Bitcoin tip to the address on that page. If you would like to support me without actually spending any money, click on the Steemit logo, vote for this episode on the Steem network. That will get me some cryptocurrency without you having to spend any money. If you're the kind of person that likes something physical in exchange for your donation, then click on the store button and buy yourself a t-shirt with the Cryptoversity branding on it. That kind of thing helps me out a lot. Or if you'd like more structured information on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains, head over to the courses section and buy yourself an online course. That's all for today. I'll be back with you tomorrow for more news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.